Okay, yo, what's up? I'm gonna be doing a trade recap on how I lost 600 on my eval. So, just start with the P&L. I'll show you guys right here. This is how the account been performing. We had 3 trades. We had a win on Thursday that I accidentally under-risked on. We had a break even on Tuesday that ended up being a win. And then this just pissed me off. Basically, I was journaling my trade, and it just randomly entered me in and with like a few minis, and then it just lost me 40 bucks, which kind of sucks. And then we have 560 today, which was actually a little bit over risk just because I got a really bad fill on this, but still, eval is still looking savable. I can still get it back up. But going into the trade, what I wanted to see, looking at the higher time frame here, we can see that we're obviously trending bullish. We hit this 4-hour gap and we displaced from it. And the most obvious draw that I had was this 4-hour internal high, which is also previous week high. It just seems like a super obvious draw on liquidity. So coming into the day, I just wanted to get a long opportunity coming into a 15-minute or 5-minute gap continuation towards this, because we were relatively close to it, about 70 points away. So I thought this was definitely going to be hit today. And then you can see over here we have this 15-minute gap that I'll mark out here. So that's when I wanted to come in. I just wanted us to go lower into this 15-minute gap and then take a long. I also noticed that today we had, let me move this back. I also noticed today we had CPI news. So we created a really big wick here, but a lot of people are saying that it isn't CPI news because it was at 9:29. I heard something dodgy saying that it was leaked 10 seconds before, so that's what caused this big move up before the actual news came out. But it still seems like a valid target. It's a big wick that swept liquidity, so it's still often to get returned back to. And so coming into the open 9:30, what I wanted to see is I wanted us to open low into this 15-minute gap and then get an inversion out of here. So then I could target these highs and this low resistance that's over here, this generated low resistance plus data highs plus a really good draw on liquidity. It was looking really good. Unfortunately, you can see that we don't get that. We actually edged the gap and then we open high, edging this data high and taking out this liquidity. And then you can see right here that we retrace back a little bit, create an SMT here with this 15-minute gap. So ES hit the 15-minute gap, NQ didn't hit the 15-minute gap, and then we get our 1-minute IFEG here to the upside, stops at the body and targeting these data highs resting over here. So what was good about this trade is that we have a super obvious bullish bias and we're clearly trending towards this previous week high up here. We also have data highs above. We get a great closure on this 1-minute IFEG here, and we also have an SMT with this trade. But some of the things that I missed out on this trade is that my key level, I don't have a singular key level, and I'm using a mitigation SMT. So a mitigation SMT means that ES hit a key level and NQ didn't. So I'm taking confirmation of ES hitting the gap and not NQ. So basically I'm expecting NQ to distribute off of nothing and hoping that ES distributes off this 15-minute to help NQ distribute to my targets as well. So that's something that you shouldn't do, and you should at least have a key level on NQ, which I learned today that I should always have NQ being the pair that manipulates towards the my key level and always take it off that, not take mitigation SMTs where ES does something, because I'm not trading ES, so it doesn't make sense for me to take an entry on NASDAQ if ES did what I wanted it to do. We also have a little bit of lack of targets. We do have a good strong draw on liquidity here, but the targets are definitely lacking a bit. That's why coming to open, I wanted us to open low into this 15-minute gap and then get an inversion, just because we have all this generated liquidity right here, which are super easy to target and always get ran through, but we don't end up getting that. And instead we open high, taking out this liquidity here. So really all I'm targeting is a swing high and data highs, which often loses a lot, especially if you don't have more supporting context on top of it, which I've noticed. Even a setup last week, we had the exact same thing, just targeting data highs, and it just ran. And people blamed it on the war, that the news that made the trade lose. But honestly, we were already that day we were already hit all the objectives, and data highs, it just doesn't look like it's going to be hit. Another thing that is a factor in this trade losing, but not too significant, is ES failing to distribute. So if we move to over here on ES, let's go to 930. Over here, my bad, hold up. Yeah, here. So this is the exact same trade idea on ES. So we hit this 15-minute gap on ES, creating the SMT with NQ. But ES is not really distributing too much. You can see that we have all these gaps here, which ES hasn't inversed, and all ES has done is just made bullish candles to the upside. And the reason I don't really care about this is because I'm not trading ES, so I don't care if ES looks like NQ, or I don't care if ES isn't inversing these gaps as well, because I'm not worried about what ES is doing. I'm worried about what NQ is doing. So when I'm looking at correlation, all I want to see is that ES looks something like NQ. But if, for example, in this trade, if we hit this 15-minute gap and NQ and ES is having more bearish candles to the downside, then I'm not going to take this, because we're clearly, ES has no signs of bearishness and seems like it's seeking something lower, which could be like this 4-hour or some generated liquidity below. But us having these two strong bullish candles with barely any wicks tells me that ES could ES is still able to distribute off of this, and a lot of the trades you're not gonna have perfect correlation. But usually I just want ES to be looking a little bit similar to NQ, which it did here. We did inverse this 1 minute here, and we also have a bit of displacement to the upside. But definitely the biggest reason that this trade failed is because there was no key level, which I learned now that I should always be waiting for NQ to hit my key level and not ES, because ES doesn't matter. And then going into the next trades that happened today, we have this 1 minute right here. This is the trade I would have took if I knew that NQ had to hit my key level and not ES. But this trade, I really like this trade because we have this low resistance generated above here by this swing high. We got a perfect stop hunt and perfectly tap into this 15-minute gap and get a huge rejection wick out of it. Whoops. Get a huge rejection wick out of it. With this 1 minute IFVG and a very good displacing candle, targeting data highs as well, which just seems like a super obvious draw on liquidity at this point, especially with this perfect trendline liquidity that's leading up to it. But this does end up being a losing trade, as you can see right here. A lot of people went break even when we pushed past this high, which in this situation I don't think I would have gone break even, but now from what I learned, that I might have gone break even, because you can see that NQ is making higher highs over here, displacing above this high. But if you look on ES, if we go to the same day over here, so this is basically the entry on ES. this is basically what it looks like on ES while you're taking this trade on NQ. So it just looks a little bit of chop, but you can see NQ displaces above this high, and ES makes lower lows. So that means that ES or NQ is displacing above these highs, but ES is going lower, which means likely that it's seeking something. So a lot of people went break even on this, and I would say it's a good break even, but I feel like and realistically I wouldn't go break even just because don't usually pay attention to ES making lower lows that much. But looking back, it would have been a good idea to look at ES doing this, but that saved them from a loss, so that's good break even, I would say. And honestly, I didn't want to re-enter on this trade. It looks good, but I didn't want to lose twice, especially after I already over risked. And then going to the third trade that we have is this 1 minute IFG here. This is a solid trade. We have low resistance. We get this 1 minute IFG. But the only thing I don't like this, oh my god, the only thing I don't like about this trade is that we already failed to distribute 3 times. We've already had choppy price action here. So why do I think that this 15-minute gap is going to distribute us again after we just fail 3 times with perfectly good setups? Then it's just not something I want to take. And honestly, I just hopped off the charts after this trade lost. But this trade idea is really good. We have this low resistance leading up to this 5-minute gap. So a mech model setup, which plays, it looks really nice looking back, but I wouldn't have taken it after seeing every single one of these lose. And then we also get our confirmation setup with a 5-minute IVG for more confirmation. So let me just delete these drawings real quick. We get this 5-minute IVG here to the upside, which also looks pretty solid with a good drawn liquidity. We have super obvious data highs that look like they want to be taken. And then we also have generated low resistance from the other day, or from the other trades. But you can see this trade ends up getting super badly break even, because realistically everyone's going to go break even at this high. So yeah, just a brutal break even and just really choppy price action today, and NQ was not delivering at all today. But yeah, that's the end of the trade recap. So let me guys know what trade you guys took, and